Parks
Oh, I
Committee.
better.
Everybody ready? Parks Committee will come to order September 13th. We'll note all members are present. Alder Campbell, Alder Eck, Alder Weary, and what's your name?
Finally, Alder Story.
Oh, Story, that's right.
The
Okay,
stranger is
We're all
here.
here.
What's your name?
Can I have an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
A second.
Stoyer,
Oh,
second by Alder Campbell to approve. Any changes?
You and I, you know.
yes.
No changes, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. D, approval of minutes.
Motion approved.
Second?
Motion back, second by Campbell to approve the minutes. Any changes there? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Regular business, number one, consideration of possible action on the request by Alderman Galvin to consider installing 1 or 2 streetlights to aid residents to play basketball later than sunset at Astor Park.
Which this
So
came
this
out.
topic was last discussed at the June 21st Park Committee meeting. Alder Galvin was at that meeting and provided comments. The motion at that meeting was to research basketball lighting alternatives and bring it back to the Park Committee for discussion. So we did have staff look into this. There are 2 options for lighting this basketball court. The first option is to hire WPS to install a standard wood pole with just an area security light. We have those throughout our entire park system. So the advantage to that option is it's the most economical way to install a light fixture. The disadvantage is there's no way to put a timer on it. So it's on at dusk and it stays on until dawn. And so the disadvantage is you can't put a timer on. So people can go out there at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning and play because the basketball court would be lit. With the proximity to neighbors, I wouldn't recommend going that direction and light it that way. The anticipated cost for that method would probably be around $10,000. And then there's an annual minimal fee that you're basically renting the fixture on a monthly basis.
Is that per fixture?
Per fixture, it's pretty minimal. It's
So
about,
$10K a year?
yeah, it's about $10,000 as a one-time fee to install it.
Oh.
And then it's about, I believe, $25 per month with a 20-year commitment. And that would have to be added to the budget.
Lights or water?
It would just be one.
Oh, wow.
The second option is to actually purchase and install sports lighting that is meant and designed for athletic sport courts. So we did research that. I do have a quote in the agenda packet. It would cost about $18,000 to $25,000 to buy 1 pole and 1 fixture that would be adequate to light that facility to sport court standards. The advantage to that is we can put a timer on it, and then we can control when it's turned off for the entire night. So usually in these instances, what we do is we have a timer and a push button. So if you want to play, you push the button, it stays on for 20 minutes or whatever duration we want to set it for, and then it shuts off. But after a certain time, we don't allow it to be turned on at all. So that cost for $18,000 to $25,000, that's just a materials cost. That's not an installation cost. We would have to hire a contractor to come in and install that system, run power to it. We usually estimate that installation is about twice the cost of purchasing materials. So you can estimate that the total cost for that option would be about $50,000 if we were to buy a private system. I did review these costs with Alder Galvin. He was originally intending to be at this meeting, but a last-minute commitment came up and he couldn't be here. But he did tell me that I could share his opinion with the committee if that helps you make a decision. So his opinion is he does not want to put a WPS light in there at all because of the potential impact it could have to the neighbors who live adjacent to the park. And in his opinion, it's not worth a $50,000 or $50,000 price tag to light up that basketball court. It just doesn't get enough use. It gets used as a casual basketball court, and he doesn't feel it's worth $50,000. So his recommendation would be to receive and place it on file. I would have the same recommendation as a park staff.
Questions? Alder Eck?
Yes, so I know that when it was talked about in June, that they were looking at other funding possibly to help with it. Is there anything, any updates on that?
Yeah, we have no updates to additional funding that could go towards this. Obviously, we could reach out to the neighborhood association and they could apply for a mini grant, but usually those are a few $1,000s at the most. If there's a desire to do this, the Parks Department does not have $50,000 available. We would have to add it to our bond request, which they reviewed. The Finance Committee reviewed the initial request last night. There's going to be a few other potential reviews down the road over the next month or so.
Anything else, Alder? Alder Campbell?
No, thank you.
So how many other lights are in the park, and is this something that we maybe can look at as far as getting like all them on like a package type thing, or are the other lights all on the $10,000 each deal?
Yeah, the other lights, I mean, I don't know offhand how many there are in the park. I know there are a couple. There's at least 2 that I can think of that are already in the park. Those are a 20-year commitment. We've already paid to install those, and we're paying per month on those. And so after that 20 years, we can ask WPS to take the lights out. But we always like to have 1 or 2 security lights in each park,
Right.
just because the police have a much easier time enforcing ordinances.
Naturally, right, just like in business on the inside too. How many squirrels are in the park? Can you like get them on the merry-go-round? You know, I mean, maybe it's something we need to look at. I mean, if we're trying to go green here and run our parks, save a crap load.
Yeah, I mean, if we ever have the money to do a capital expense to replace the lights with a private light, there's a very expensive upfront cost, but it's much cheaper operational cost.
And what if we're looking in the solar? I mean, what it takes to run a street light on solar. I mean, ultimately, that'd be, if we're gonna do it, other than, you know, you got people that have solar golf carts and not solar, battery, and they now all got rid of them. They're like the elite Cadillac. They're like, Bryce, every 3 years you gotta put $5,000 worth of batteries in them. You know, and they're like, we got rid of them. You know, and so I think as we're getting into this new evolution of batteries, people don't understand how much it costs to keep replacing the batteries. And so in this situation, it would be huge too.
Anything else?
I'm-
Campbell? All right, thanks.
Just with comment, I think, yeah, we need to receive and place on file.
All right, for me, thank you, Chair. Was this originally brought up by Alder Galvin? Was he looking at this? I mean, or did the neighbors get into that at all?
Yes, there was a resident that originated the request,
Okay.
and so he brought it forward on behalf of the resident.
All
Make
right.
a motion, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm
Make a
good.
motion to receive and place on file.
Second.
Motion by Alder Eck, second by Alder Campbell to receive and place on file under discussion. You're not here for this item, are you, ma'am? No. Okay, very good.
She's
And I-
Joanne's.
All right, any other discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. And before we get to number 2, everything that the committee decides tonight will be forwarded on as a recommendation to full council next week on Tuesday. So, number 2, consideration of possible action on approving a new dog park location within the Green Bay Park system. Director.
Yeah, over the past few years, there's been multiple requests throughout the city to install more dog parks throughout our park system. Currently, we only have 1 dog park in the Green Bay Park system, and it's at Whitney Park, and it's a very small dog park, which isn't ideal if you're bringing your dog there to exercise. That small dog park is more of a socialization park where, you know, dog owners can all kind of gather with their dogs and socialize more than it is an exercise or a traditional dog park. So there's also a second small dog park about the same size as Whitney that's planned for the shipyard. So we'll have 2 of those very small ones in the near future. But there's a desire to install several additional larger dog parks that are kind of maybe more traditional of a standard dog park. So in 2023, the city council bonded $50,000 as part of our capital improvement request to put towards the construction costs of adding 1 medium-sized dog park to our facilities. And that's all we have money for right now, is to build 1 dog park. And so staff did quite a bit of research in our park system. You know, I've included a map in our agenda packet which shows where all the surrounding dog parks are within the community of Green Bay and surrounding communities, so you can kind of see service areas. And we looked at where we have available open space where there wouldn't be much of a conflict with adjacent residents and neighbors. So through our research, we determined that there was 2 very good potential locations for a dog park. Proposed location 1, there's a map in the agenda packet if you want to take a look at it. That's at Sullivan Park North. The advantages to this location is that there's an existing parking lot already in place. It has direct access to the East River Trail or the Baird Creek Trail in this situation. About half of the fencing is already installed adjacent to the parking lot. And finally, it has main access right off of Main Street. So the parking lot access is very visible off of Main Street. And if we put a sign out at the road, it'd be very accessible and visible to the public. And then finally, there really aren't any adjacent residents nearby. You have Riverside Ballroom that would be most affected by this. You have a small car dealership right on the corner. There are maybe 1 or 2 residences on it'd be just to the west of the car dealership. But I don't even know if those are owner occupied or not. I haven't looked into that yet. The disadvantage is that there's really no shade in the park. And then secondly, the disadvantage is that there's a small soccer field that's currently being used by the school district. That soccer field would go away. We could find another location for them to play though. There's probably even room in Joanne's Park to move that soccer field if we wanted to do that, if the school district continued to want to use that soccer field. The proposed acreage in the dog park shown on the map is about 3.25 acres, which is more ideal to a medium dog park size. That would not be considered a large dog park. It would be considered a medium-sized one. The second location is at East River Meyer Park. So if you're familiar with that location, all that there is right there is a mowed greenway adjacent to the East River Trail. And there's a playground kind of right in the middle of that mowed turf area. There's a lot of mature trees there also, a lot of old oak trees, probably some cottonwoods, I would guess. So the advantages to that is it does have direct access to the trail, and there's plenty of shades, trees throughout the site. The disadvantage is there's no parking lot. There is no dedicated parking lot. So if we were to put a dog park there, people would have to park on the road and walk in. And then secondly, there's a playground on the property, like I mentioned. If we were to put a dog park there, my recommendation as the Parks Director would be to completely remove the playground. The 2 uses just don't mix well. I would not recommend having a playground adjacent to a dog park in that close of a proximity. The proposed acreage of the dog park shown on the map for East River Meyer is about 2 acres, so it's smaller than what's shown on the other one, but there is room on that site map that you could probably get 2.5, maybe 3 acres if you took up that entire grass area. So we did have a neighborhood meeting with the East River Meyer adjacent residents, and this was part of a neighborhood association meeting. We advertised it through the association, and then we invited anyone who lived within, I think, 250 feet of the park to come and comment on that. This neighborhood meeting was held several weeks ago. I will tell you that what came out of that meeting was a lot of very negative feedback, extremely negative feedback. Now, that being said, there were only a few residents that actually attended. James was there. I wasn't able to be there. I guess, James, how many people were in attendance, do you think?
I'd say 15. Yeah.
So there were about 15 people. The very vocal residents who were extremely vocal against it lived across the street from the park. Their concerns that they brought up is there is no parking lot, and they were concerned with so many people parking on the road and utilizing that for dog park parking instead of being able to use it for their own purposes as a resident. They were also concerned about possibly removing the playground. They did stress that that playground does get used enough that we can keep it. I will tell you though, from a park standpoint, our staff just isn't seeing that playground having very much usage. I'm sure it does get used, but it's few and far between when we see usage on that playground. There was a lot of concern about noise with the dog park and the houses being that close to it. You get a lot of dogs barking and running around. That is a concern to residents. Since I wasn't there, I'm sure that there were also some positive feedback, I guess. Was there, James? Or?
There was some, yeah.
Yeah, so there was some, but I think the very vocal residents were very opposed to it. As a staff, if you have a question.
No, I'm
So,
just mulling this.
As a staff, we kind of took that neighborhood impact or input into account, and we looked at the pros and cons of both sites to determine what we would recommend as the best suitable location. And so as a staff, we're recommending to place it at Sullivan Park North. Like I said, the primary reasons are, most people when they go to a dog park, they drive. It's nice if a few people can walk, but most people drive. We have a parking lot that's there already. That location really has little to minimal impact to any residents because it's all commercial in that district. The biggest impact would be to Riverside Ballroom. We do have a joint parking arrangement where they can use our parking lot as overflow parking. Now, I did reach out to Riverside Ballroom today. I haven't had a chance to discuss their concerns with them. I don't want to speak for whether or not they have any concerns because I haven't spoken to them, but I would imagine their biggest concern would be maybe losing some potential parking on their busy activity days. But I guess how I see it is we're not lighting this dog park. It's mainly going to be a day function. And Riverside Ballroom is often an evening function. Not always. They do have some day events there, but oftentimes it's really busy at night. So that would be my recommendation. I will let you know that we do have somebody from the Neighborhood Association who would like to speak on this topic. So whenever you're ready, if you'd like to open the floor.
Just
I
give
have
me
a
one
question first, I'll just start and then go back.
Yeah, thank you, sure. Dan, I was looking at the Sullivan Park North and the Riverside. I'm familiar with the parking lot in that there, and it looks like we do have a parking lot for that park piece, correct? Does the Riverside have any way of utilizing that as well? Do they use that parking lot?
Yeah. They use the parking lot on our property. That was part of the agreement with them when we put the trail through their property. So it was a give and take arrangement where they gave us a permanent easement for the trail in return for letting them use the parking lot on our property as overflow parking.
And that's understood. I think the fact that, most of their events are evening, but they do have some day activities as well. But, I think that could be worked out, so. I'm good with that.
Thank you. Alder Campbell?
Being as I owned a full block across the street from Riverside Ballroom, I watched the development of the trail, and my kids for many, many years walked safely, trustingly, crossing the street, down across the bridge, across the river. I think for a while that parking lot was a driver's ed place for a while before the park was down there, but I don't ever remember too much activity. I'm there all day and then most of the night that I saw of the soccer going on down there. I don't think it's used a lot. Yeah.
It has minimal usage,
Yeah.
but it does get used.
Yeah, I think it's a great utilization of that property, and I think the people that own are probably would not have a problem with it. But I'm not speaking for them. But as being the neighbor, I think not that would bring business there, but I don't think it would take business neither. I mean, there is a driveway there. I don't think it's a safety issue coming out of there, even though it's a rise up. But it's pretty good as far as shade goes, unless they tore down all the trees because of elm disease or something. But I think behind all them buildings, there's some shade there.
There's there's mature trees along the shoreline, along the East
That
River.
too.
Our intention would be if we were to build a dog park there, we'd probably plant, I don't know, 20, 30 trees in there, something like that. Over time, they'll be shady. One advantage to this location is, there's about half the fencing already in place. So there might be additional money to do some infrastructure, so maybe we can get a shade canopy with the money we currently have. Whereas if we put it at East River Meyer, almost all of that funding would have to go towards fencing. And
Yeah,
there'd
well,
be little to put
probably have
towards
a hard time even
infrastructure.
putting a fence around it for $50,000, but yeah. I think it's a great spot for it. I don't think you would ever run into any problems, even if it got big. I'd make
Make a motion.
Would you
to-
like to speak towards this? Okay.
I was gonna
Make a
say-
motion to open the floor.
Second.
Motion by Alder Eck, second by Alder Campbell. To open the floor, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Just need your name and address. and-
Thank you. Alyssa Profit, 1262 Cherry Street. I'm from Joannes Park Neighborhood Association, but I'm not going to speak on behalf of them, but I'm going to kind of try and give a very brief, I have a lot of thoughts on this, but a very brief synopsis of my personal views and what I've heard from neighbors. So I appreciate all the work, first of all, because since we reinvigorated Joannes, this has been the top of we thought it was a big ticket item, way down in the future. We didn't see it as a reality, but we saw it in Meyer Park. We saw this as a park that's severely underutilized in our neighborhood. It's a gorgeous location with trees under the promise that the trees would stay. That's what's lacking in dog parks, not in the city, but just in the adjacent area. Howard, Bellevue do not have that tree cover. So that was one thought that we always saw that location turning into a dog park. I appreciate James and Corey sitting through that really intense meeting regarding the neighbors within the 200-foot notification zone, but I will say, I got their contact information. I've emailed them twice in the past week to let them know about this, and I've heard nothing, and they are not here. They were more favorable when we talked about setting it back further, so it wasn't right within their eye shot out their front window. The parking lot, I know on the paper it looks like it might need one. When you physically drive back there, it is underutilized. I don't foresee a need. You can fit so many cars. The playground equipment. So I have 2 toddlers. It is a playground that's geared more towards my age kids. So after that concern got raised by neighbors, I've gone 6 to 8 times since that meeting on various days of the week, times. We are the only people there, and we'll stay for a good hour to just see if it's truly being utilized. And it's an underutilized park, and it's gorgeous, and it's on a trail system, and a dog park, kind of can be for neighbors. People might drive out of their way, and they for sure will, but we have such a high concentration of people in that neighborhood with dogs that it could be just a neighborly thing, and that's what we've been looking for. United Way did door knocking in our neighborhood before the pandemic, and they put together this resource for us. 3 times on here it's mentioned that Joannes Park residents want a dog park. Sullivan, I've talked with some of the groups who utilize it for soccer because we have a high residence population who appreciate soccer. I've been here before to talk about soccer. I'm very passionate about it. Groups were not pleased to hear about the possibility of one of the only full-size soccer fields that actually keeps nets all summer as well. We don't have many of those on the east side. So I appreciate all the work that went into the decision to move to Sullivan. However, I would like to see a promise that we will have a full-size soccer field in Joannes before that move takes place, because we will have residents very upset. I know you say you don't see the soccer as much, but it's definitely a sport that happens, and it's something that's not in Joannes that we want in Joannes. So I think, and a next door poll. We had one put out for only Joannes Park neighborhood residents, so only people who live. 25 people responded. 84% response ranged from no opinion to 52% said very excited about the possibility of Meyer Park becoming a dog park. Only 12% said no way. And the trees, again, I talked about the trees. I just had a very long list, and I'm trying to, I know 3 minutes is normally the allotment, so I apologize, but I'm very passionate about Meyer Park becoming the dog park, so.
So I got a question.
Yes.
So is your border Main Street for your neighborhood
Yes.
association?
Yep.
There's a lot on the other side that
Right.
would utilize that park. Like I said, 12 years I owned that property. And I lived right around the corner as a kid on Newhall. So, everybody has a dog. Everybody needs a park. Should be one in every district, in my opinion, but, because people would sometimes sometimes it seems like they care more about their dog than their kids, unfortunately, you know. We have a lot of kids' parks. As much as I like the idea of what you got, cost-wise, to develop that park is just probably three times the cost to get it up and running. We just changed Farland Park to change a parking lot, to get rid of all the on-street parking. They don't understand what on-street parking will cost. When you can't get a trailer or a boat, and them people across the street, they're not gonna be happy. Why have a boat if you can't put it in your garage? You can't get in, you can't ask people to move in.
Did you have any
Park,
questions?
yeah,
over-
but I'm just giving an opinion
Oh, okay, that's fine.
of that and asking, you know, my question was, across the street in the next neighborhood, you know, you didn't pull those people.
True.
Okay, that's all.
Alder Eck?
Okay, so, and if I'm understanding, the bridge, you can go from the bridge from Joanne's over to Sullivan Park,
Right.
correct?
Right.
Okay, that's what I thought. I've
Yeah. My
been
biggest-
over there, but it's been a while.
Yeah, my biggest concern is that we would take away soccer. Soccer is already something that is, I mean, kids have to sneak onto the the field at East to play soccer if they, you know, if their nets are missing from Sullivan already. So I would just want the promise. I would really plea for a promise to have soccer openly accessible in Joanne's Park if we take this one away. I know Washington Middle School does, and you know that as well. They do utilize it for practice right now, and it's a full-size one is rare in our parks, so, with nets.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for coming in. You're very passionate about all this. So this soccer field, in your estimation, is it used quite a bit, or what's your take on that?
From what I
From
see.
Sullivan?
Right, at Sullivan. I mean, it's right on Main Street, so it's easy to see when you drive and when you live in that neighborhood. That's the only one where I've seen full organized soccer matches of adult men playing there, because there is the parking lot, so they can all drive and get, like I said, it's only full-size one, so to get a full 7-on-7 game going. Yes, I do see it utilized, and I see the kids, I see people run their dogs there now, but they do that in Meyer as well, so. But it's utilized for sure for soccer.
So you were at that meeting, correct?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so it seemed like the general tenor was against dog parks in general, or against both?
Against dog parks,
Or
against
was it against that
playground.
location?
It was against the possibility of a dog park because of visually seeing it from their front window, which I can appreciate
At Van
seeing
Beaver?
at Meyer.
Meyer.
At Meyer, I'm sorry.
No, you're okay.
Meyer.
And then the playground equipment going away. But I mean, you jump on that trail. Joanne's Park is one of the biggest parks in the city. It is very close proximity. I personally don't feel the passion to keep that playground equipment, which is aged as well. I mean, and the proximity of the end of one of the slides to the mulch, my 3-year-old struggles to hop down, and it's intended for toddler size. So those were the two biggest issues, but I don't foresee the need to keep the playground equipment personally, so.
That's all I have for now.
Thanks. Is it Mr. or Mrs. Prophet?
Mrs.
Okay, so I'm supposed to say it wrong, I'll get it right. Yeah, thanks for coming. It sounds like are you endorsing one over the other, or you're saying you're fine with either one, but if you lose a soccer field, you need to have another?
Right, I would
Okay.
definitely prefer Meyer, personally, that's my personal opinion. If it's Sullivan, I would like to see the promise that soccer is put in place before it's taken away.
All right. Appreciate it. Any other questions? Anything else you want to add? All right, thanks.
Motion
Thank
to close the floor.
Motion by Alder Eck, second by Alder Steuer to close the floor. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion
Thanks.
carried.
I do have a question.
Sure, Alder Eck.
Okay, so would it work to have a soccer field at East River? Meyer?
No, it wouldn't, there's too many mature trees.
What about at Joanne's?
Potentially, we haven't explored it in very much detail, so right here today, I can't tell you that it would work. But there is a lot of open space available that I'm hopeful that it would. It might not be quite as large as it is now, but again, I can't tell you that until I take a closer look at it. You know, but
I will tell you though, Washington Middle School does use the area that we'd be probably looking at doing the soccer field. That's what they use for their gym classes. They use that for practicing different sports. So it is kind of conducive to have at least what they're practicing right now at Sullivan. So as a practice field, I think there's a good chance that that space at Joanne's would work for practice. Now, for official game use and all that, when I went and took a look at it, it would need probably some regrading, and maybe a little bit of, so it would take a little bit of, I think, money to develop that if we were to make it an actual soccer field. But for practice, what it's used right now, it's conducive for practice.
Okay, so Washington, they walk over the bridge to get over to the Sullivan, right?
They walk over to Joanne's and they also walk over to the Sullivan,
Okay.
both.
All right, thank you.
Anything else? I'm sorry.
Well, it's an interesting dynamic with both. I mean, there's advantages and disadvantages on both. I think my first reaction, I was thinking Sullivan North, but without the trees, that's one issue that I have a hard time with. The other one, of course, is with the neighbors. I've seen other dog parks around the city. Well, there's just the one. And I think one of the concerns is if you're close to other citizens, what kind of effect will that have on the neighborhood? So that bothers me a little bit, and I think the parking on the street, like Alder Campbell brought forward, is, that can be a real issue, and so I don't know. I'm up in the air a little bit on this, but initially I was looking at Sullivan Park North for this, but I'm waiting for some other discussion.
Thanks, Alder. Is this Alder Galvin's area?
Yes, it is, I believe it is. I did speak to Alder Galvin about it last night also. Talked about the two options, went over pros and cons with him. He did say that I could also share his opinion on this with the committee, and his opinion was Sullivan Park North was his preferred option, and would be a good fit for it.
Appreciate that. Yeah. When it comes to parks, I think the holders really know how it'll affect the area. I've ref soccer and I've refed at that field before for the middle school, so it's a good field. It's nice and a lot of parking. So you gain a dog park and you gain a soccer field, or you lose a soccer field. And I don't know if it would fit real well. It's not super accessible in the middle there. It's okay. But
Well, keep in mind that soccer field, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's just used for practice. It's not used for.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many years ago you
it's been a couple years.
lived there,
So.
but currently it's just being used for practice.
Oh, okay, well then that does factor into. Is that flooded anymore? I know sometimes.
Yeah,
They moved it out of there.
It
because
did
it's
a
being
lot when
water.
we had high water conditions. It's pretty dry now. I mean, in the spring, it's a little wet, but by summer, it's dried out pretty good.
Yeah.
So it says consideration with possible action on approving a new dog park location within the Green Bay Park system. Are you looking for us to decide where, or just in general to say? Yes?
Well, you can either select a location and have the committee select it, or you can direct staff to just select a location and move ahead. My recommendation would be that you approve adding a dog park to Sullivan Park North, and that would be your motion. If you'd like to consider something else, that's fine.
What's the timetable? Is this being put in this fall, or are you looking spring?
It would probably be constructed next year, but we
Okay.
have the funding already in place for it. So we just have to put together the bid documents. It is $50,000 that we have money allocated, so it might have to be a public works bid project.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Are we also, we're looking at just this particular issue here in these two parks, but are we looking possibly on the west side, far west side?
Yeah,
Because
so
we've talked, maybe Colorado
Yes, we
Park.
were.
we've
Okay.
looked at other locations to do larger dog parks than this. And we'll be bringing those to you at a
Okay.
future
At a
park
future
committee. We do have a staff, we do have a tentative recommendation already for the far west side and the far east side, but I guess I'm not ready to review that with you today. But these would be much larger dog parks than even at Sullivan.
Yeah, because we looked at the ones in my
Yeah.
district and
Yeah.
they weren't really going to work.
Now, what Mrs. Prophet said, I appreciate your testimony on that, and I think, we're voting just on this particular issue, but I know one of your wishes, her wishes was to say, well, if you do it here, then let's look at a soccer field over at Joanne's, and that's two separate things. But
Right.
not to say that that can't be brought forward, but it would have to be another process, so to speak. So,
Yeah,
I don't know.
it did, it did fill up. We do have a staff, we do have a tentative recommendation already for the far west side and the far east side. We do have a staff, we do have a tentative recommendation already for the far west side and the far east side.
So I don't know. So do we need to
Yeah, need a
Well,
motion.
decide, we need a motion?
Make a motion to approve, you'd rather do it? Go ahead.
I'll make a
Wrestling.
He's
motion,
interrupting my.
I'll make a motion that I think this is a great location. I don't see a whole lot of problem other than a soccer field that's used for practice. It's a safe spot. We okayed a little garden across the street from there that I see the little bitty fences there. That isn't growing yet, but hopefully next year. And that's right across the street from the entrance to this location. It's a great spot. It's safe down there. You don't have to worry about cars running off, getting down there. I think along that trail, along the bottom there is some lighting leading to the bridge, if I'm not mistaken. I've driven through here, I've grown up by it, I've played in that park. I don't think you could find a better spot that could fit this application, I really do. So I'm gonna make a motion with the location as in a great suggestion, as in to put a dog park there. And a lot of it has to do with the cost, let alone the location.
Is there a second to that?
Sullivan Park North.
Sullivan Park
second.
North.
Motion by Alder Campbell, second by,
Can I add that
Sawyer?
one point?
go ahead.
Well, I think
Sorry,
one of
under
the points,
discussion.
we talked about the fact that there are no trees there, but is that something over a period of time where we can talk about planting some trees over time?
Well, we anticipate with the $50,000, we'll have plenty of money built into that budget to plant trees.
All right. I will second the motion.
Under discussion, I would say I'm gonna lean in favor of what the elder person of the area recommends. And the gain, I think, outweighs the loss. I didn't know it wasn't used for games anymore. It's been a few years since I've been reffing there. But this does give the opportunity then to find a spot by the current elder or any potential future elder people to find a good spot for a soccer field. So, any other discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. All right, we are on to number 3, consideration with possible action on relocating the Forestry Tree Nursery from East River Van Beaver to Fort Howard Park. Director.
So currently, we have a tree nursery, a forestry tree nursery at East River Van Beaver Park. The current acreage of that is about 1.85 acres. What we do there is forestry by small little trees, just little whips, plants them in that nursery, lets them grow 4 or 5 years, and then plants them on the roads and in the park. So it's a great way for the city to save a considerable amount of money purchasing trees. We ran into a problem right now out at that facility in the fact that, Green Bay just keeps growing bigger. So our forestry department, there's more of a demand to plant more trees than we did when that facility was originally built. We are not able to expand that tree nursery beyond its current footprint because it's in the floodway. And we can't add fill into that area, we can't put the fencing in that area, so we're kind of landlocked. And so we've just outgrown it. We have more of a demand than what we can supply. So we looked at our entire park system and looked at, where is a good fit to relocate that tree nursery. After looking at all the different options, the most obvious location, in our opinion, is putting park, which is right adjacent to the park shop. And the reason that location was selected by staff was because there's plenty of room in that park to put a tree nursery twice as large as what we currently have. And we would accommodate that by removing a ball field that is currently there. It is a lit ball field, but it's not in good condition, and it hasn't been played on in years. And so it's just sitting there empty. We're maintaining it as a ball field, we're mowing it, we're fertilizing it, we're raking the infield so that we don't have a bunch of weeds in there, but it's not being played on. Maybe there's an occasional neighborhood couple of kids that might throw the ball around or hit the ball every once in a while, but there are no structured activities there at that park. And it hasn't been for a number of years now. And so the other advantage in the fact of the size is, like I mentioned, it's adjacent to the park shop. That's where the forestry department has their home base. All of our foresters go there in the morning and leave there at night. So currently what they have to do is they have to mobilize the crew to go out to the tree nursery, which is on the other side of the river and the other side of town, do their work and then bring everything back. It's just more conducive to do it all right there at the park shop and just modify the fence configuration to just, in essence, make the fence enclosure bigger within the park shop. So I have like a detailed analysis of what we can accomplish with number of trees that we can plant. We did have a neighborhood meeting a couple of weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. We did this through the neighborhood association. They advertised it, and we sent letters to everyone resident within 500 feet of the park. At that meeting, very low turnout. There was one city staff member who lives in that neighborhood from Community and Economic Development, who just always goes to those meetings, and then 2 residents. So there was only input from 3 people in the neighborhood. Nobody called me and left a message with an opinion. Nobody sent me an email. But at that meeting, we discussed the pros and the cons. The 3 individuals that were there were very supportive of this endeavor. They understand the benefits and what we're trying to accomplish. They feel that that ball field just isn't getting the use that it used to get, and they feel that this is good. We also talked to them about the potential of, when we fence it, do we want to screen it so that they're not looking at a tree nursery? So the neighborhood, when they're playing in the rest of the park, they don't have to see the tree nursery. Their opinion is no, don't screen it. They like the nursery as an educational component. In fact, they encouraged us to bring classes in there to talk about what we're doing, or maybe have signage within the park describing the benefits of the tree nursery. So in general, it was a very positive neighborhood meeting. But again, I wouldn't say we got very much public input on it, but we did attempt to get as much as we could. Our city forester is here. He can talk a little bit more about the benefits of what we're trying to accomplish if you have questions for him. But what I'm looking for is approval to relocate the tree nursery to Fort Howard Park.
Thanks, Director. Alder Schroyer.
Thank you, Chair. And I was going to ask Brian to speak on that too, what your opinion is of that, but, I think there was, what I've read, what Director Ditchite talked about in the neighborhood, I feel very good about it, but I just wanted to hear your take on that as well.
Yeah, thank you. Originally I wanted to just expand at East River Van Beaver, where we've been for, I think, 30 years, I think, is the nursery's been in that location. We need a bigger nursery. We can get about 2,000 trees in their max capacity. It takes about 4 years, again, 4 to 5 years to get a tree from whip stage to plantable. So we can take about 500 trees out of there in a year. Emerald Ash Borer, we're taking down 1,500 trees a year. So, we're just at that site, we're way under, demand of what we need. So a bigger location right next to the park shop, like how Dan mentioned, just mobilizing and getting staff there back and forth. We have a holding area at our park shop now, and what we're doing is digging trees out of the nursery in the springtime, and we bring them back across to the park shop where we hold them during the summertime, irrigate them. So we would be combining that whole facility into this one area. The capacity, again, it's almost double of what we have right now. So between expansion, all the removals that we've done in the backlog of tree planting from the last 8 years of EAB, and the costs, it's about, a tree whip is about the third of the price of buying a bare root tree of the size that we plant, which you have 2 inch caliber.
And it might have been stated, but how many more trees can you do there versus where you're at now?
Yeah, depending on the layout, configuration, and things like that, it's going to be close to double.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's what I wanted to hear.
yeah. We're looking somewhere between 3,200 and 3,400 trees we could have in there. So
Excellent. Thanks.
Great.
Alder Campbell. Did you have anything, Melinda?
Kind of both ways, you maybe can answer it too, but what happened to the Fort Howard Park with the ARPA funds? The park over the railroad area over there? What happened to that money that got delegated for a new tree nursery over off of Broadway? Is that Fort Howard Park?
No.
I think we might have requested funding, but it didn't qualify.
No, we
Because-
took the $1 million from the Farland Park and we divided it into 5, and a portion of it was going over there. I just didn't hear nothing about that.
That was, I believe that was an initial discussion that you and I had, but I don't think that that's actually what was approved to put that into the tree nursery. That was, I believe, delegated to other projects. And I can confirm that, though. I mean, I have the list in my office, I don't have it here. But I know we discussed it, but I don't think that it actually ended up being allocated towards this facility. Because it didn't necessarily have a direct impact to residents. It has an indirect impact, but not necessarily a
We
direct.
can bring that for, later, but did you have any questions for?
Well, it
For
was for
sure.
staff in general, other than, compared to the size acreage over there, acreage or square feet, I don't know, compared to the location you're suggesting here, but what's the size there? I mean, I guess,
About double.
tree count wise, but,
Yeah, the area wise too, we're about 1.7, 1.8 where we are now, and this would be around 4 acres.
oh, it's quite a bit bigger than, yeah. And fertile ground and all that good stuff, and no flooding.
Well, yeah, it's definitely higher, we wouldn't have any flooding issues there. There would be some amending, it is a baseball field, so the outfield's got great
Yeah.
turf, but the infield would need some work.
I mean, have all the room you want if it doesn't have the right soil base and all that, well, right better than anyone,
Yeah, and we've been amending at our current site, we take all the old chips off the playground, rebuilt, it's great compost.
Oh, yeah.
And we till that in every year,
Cool.
so, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure we need trees, and we just gotta find space to grow them,
Sure. Alder?
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. So you mentioned the flooding, and I know it, that's like definitely a flood zone. My daughter used to play soccer kind of near there, and it ended up being a mud bowl after a while. So is that killed off, did that cause a problem with the trees there?
On the one end, on the south end of the nursery, we do have a little bit of flooding issues in the springtime, but we do have some trees that like wet feet, so we plant them on that end. And then with the amending that we're doing, we are raising that end up a little bit, so it's not a major issue, but yeah, we do have to do some draining and pumping in the springtime in some years.
I actually have another.
Thanks. Sure, go ahead.
So if we move this over, what about, what's gonna happen over at East River, Van Beaver?
Yeah, that's my other question, actually.
Yeah, so short term, we're gonna be working out of 2 nurseries, because we're full capacity at East River right now. So we'll be digging those trees out as they're maturing and plant them. Once we get the facility going at Fort Howard, we'll start planting those whips there. So there's probably gonna be a 5-year overlap between the 2 facilities before we're completely out of there.
So you'll still be utilizing it, but there'll come a time where it won't be utilized
Right.
at all?
Right.
Yeah, and over the next several years, we'll be looking at that space and determining what do we do with that space at East River Van Beaver.
Soccer field.
Does it just become green space, or do we actually put some other activity in that
All right,
space?
that's great. Thank you for that. Perfect. Okay.
Okay, I make a motion to.
One thing I do just want to touch bases on real quickly is the funding for this. Right now, I'm just asking you to approve the location of it. We don't have funding currently in place, but I'll double check the ARPA funds just to make sure. Right now, we do have 150,000 in our 2024 bond request for this. Now, over the next couple of weeks, Brian and I are going to kind of reevaluate that cost. We may be able to bring that down and bring our bond request down if we can do it cheaper, because when we inspected that ball field, that outfield fencing is in really good shape. So we can take that down and reuse it and put it in the new location, and that'll save a considerable amount of money in the development of this location.
That would be at the same park or a different park, that fence?
That fence will take down the ball field and we'll put the forestry nursery there in its place.
But that
So
fence will be used where?
It'll be used as perimeter fence. Right now, the outfield fence would be relocated at the same park to become the perimeter fence.
Are lights on the ball field? Can you use those elsewhere? Are they in good shape?
They're old, they're really old. I mean, I don't really see a need for us to, we wouldn't salvage those for any other location because they're too old.
Just
Not even Perkins.
comment,
Sorry.
question. Just one other comment or question. I'm sure you're always gonna have deer issues or animal issues. I mean, do you foresee more or less?
We did have a lot of deer issues at East River, and then when we did put the fence up about 10, 12 years ago, it drastically improved our productivity on the trees there.
Yeah.
I don't really see deer at Fort Howard. I'm sure
Yeah.
they're around.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
mainly geese that fly in there and some sandhill cranes, but,
Yeah.
you know, having the fencing
Yeah.
definitely keep deer out too.
Just trying to ask, all the likable questions about getting them to grow. I mean,
Yeah.
hit spot all you want. If they don't grow,
Right.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. I think we had a motion to
Uh,
approve.
Yep.
Second.
There's a motion, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, one step done. I remember playing City League football there. When we used to rotate the fields. Number 4, consideration of possible action on hiring Aries for $36,750 to complete the engineering necessary to replace the Beaver Dam Creek culvert at the Beaver Dam Creek driveway entrance.
So in the 2023 bond request, the city council did approve funding this engineering study. And so what we'd like to do is hire a consultant to engineer the new culvert crossing over the Beaver Dam Creek. The culvert crossing current one is located underneath the parking lot entrance off of Springdale and 9th Street. So it's our main parking lot entrance into the park. Currently, there's 2 large metal culverts spanning that creek, and they're rusting out and starting to collapse. So we really have to replace that before we have a total collapse of that structure, because if that happens, we'll have major flooding issues along that stretch. So once the engineering is completed, we'll have an estimated cost from the consultant for the repairs, and then at a future bond request, we will request additional funding to actually replace those culverts with probably more of a box culvert. So I don't think they'll end up being the metal, traditional metal ones. It'll be more of a box culvert more than likely. So we did send this request for proposals out to 6 different engineering firms, and only 2 companies provided quotes. We're proposing to contract the work out to Ayers for $36,750. They were the low quote. We have worked with this company on many different occasions. They're well qualified, and I really have no concerns moving forward with hiring them for this work. There is quite a bit of engineering that goes along with this project. And so the scope of work includes doing a site survey, doing stream hydraulic analysis, determine how big of a structure we need to put, and then provide cost estimates, permitting, and then finally create construction bid documents so that we can bid out the construction in the near future. So I'm looking for approval to hire Ayers to complete the engineering.
Motion.
Questions?
Oh,
That's
Go ahead.
your
it-
district.
it's my district, yeah. Motion to approve.
Motion
Second.
approved by Alder Eck, second by Alder Campbell. Any questions, discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Carried. And informational director's report.
So I've included the director's report. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. The only thing that I really did want to point out is on Saturday, we have the Walk for Wildlife out at the Wildlife Sanctuary. That is the biggest fundraising event out at the Wildlife Sanctuary. If you haven't gone to it before, I would recommend you go. All of the proceeds from that Walk for Wildlife go back into animal rehab. So it gets reinvested, and that offsets our operational expenses on any given year. So the actual day and time, the day is Saturday. I think it's 8
So
to 12:30.
there was a charge, or you just,
There is a charge. I don't have that off the top of my head. But there is a charge, and like I said, all the proceeds goes towards animal rehab.
Any other questions from the committee?
Yeah, I just want, you were starting to tell us about the Nebula Z ride, and I know it's going to be down for a while, but can you just expand on what was going on with that?
Yeah, so we had the opening, which we kind of advertised as a preview to the ride since it's so late in the season. That day went great, we had no issues. The next day, when we opened the park and started giving rides, there was a noise somewhere inside the ride itself. We've been working with the manufacturer to troubleshoot what is creating that noise. We haven't been able to pinpoint it yet, so more than likely the the manufacturer will likely have to send a consultant out here to assess the ride and help us troubleshoot what's going on. We just closed it as a precaution. We didn't know what the noise was, and we felt better safe than sorry. The repair should be covered under warranty.
Thank you. Thanks.
Repair and the traffic of them coming out, that's all their cost.
More than likely,
Was
we
it
haven't
from
worked through all of that
Italy?
yet, but the ride is under warranty for a year, so.
It's from Italy, right?
The company is based out of Italy, but they do have a location in the United States also.
Entertain a motion to receive and place on file unless you have any other questions.
Motion to receive and place
Do we
on
need to do
file?
that for information?
I was gonna say.
Okay.
Because it's a report, so.
Yeah,
Alright.
that's why we're receiving it,
Oh,
please.
can I ask
Oh,
one
yeah,
question?
gonna-
Or is that
sure.
the next
Yeah.
part?
The next one's next meeting, so.
So getting back to the tree thing, I mean, what's with the 600 some acres out at Bay Beach? I mean, the old landfill, I mean, God, that would be, can't you plant trees out there? I mean, when are we gonna utilize that property? Like for,
At the wildlife sanctuary?
no, that side of all the
East of
600
Vance.
acres,
East
you
of
know?
Vance.
I'm just sitting there
Next to
going,
the,
why wouldn't you? You
Pippin
got,
Pippin?
that's gotta be a couple hundred acre
Yeah,
wide
One
open.
thing that I'll be bringing forward, which I think I already brought forward a few years ago actually, is there is an area of concern committee with the DNR where they kind of look at habitat improvement projects throughout the lower bay of Green Bay and down the Fox River. One of the projects that they selected as a great habitat improvement projects is at the Wildlife Sanctuary. So in about a year from now, I'll be bringing that forward to this committee to talk more about it. But that will be, that is proposed to be a very significant habitat restoration project on the entire Wildlife Sanctuary property. So it'll be a substantial project. We're looking at funding it all through grants. And we just started to have conversations on it in the last week or so. And I would imagine in about a year from now, I'll be bringing approvals to you to proceed with that and to accept grants.
So, kind of help me here. So the leaf dump is the city, is Steve's end of it, I would assume?
Yeah, that.
But it's on our property, but, so it's not sanctuary, it is
That is
sanctuary,
managed
it is
by
park.
Public Works as a yard waste facility, yes.
So all the way up to Dan's?
Not all the way up to
Okay,
Dan's, I mean,
just
it's,
So, where it is over there.
I don't know offhand the amount of acreage that
Yeah.
facility is
So
entailing, but.
this new development, this big wide road thing here, is it gonna get rid of that, or is that
No,
part
I
of
would
it?
imagine it would go around that,
Okay, just wondering.
because we don't have any plans to eliminate that yard
Yeah.
waste facility.
It's one of the biggest
at
green
this point.
spaces that we got in the city, you know? Right, 600, how many acres?
It's a 520, 540, somewhere in
Okay.
that range.
All right, just wondering, seems like a great spot for a lot of trees. Okay.
All right, thanks. We had a motion and a second. Acting Sawyer to receive and place on file. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next meeting, September 27th. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
To adjourn by Eck, second by Stoyer. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. We're
We
adjourned.
are adjourned. Leaving
We can
meeting.
take 2 minutes, I got to put John.
In charge now. You take the